guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Teacher Raph. This is Twilight Zone episode 52. And I think I'm going to need to make this episode into multiple parts because there's a lot of information and I'm sort of just going through and looking at information, sort of refreshing my memory and learning some new tidbits and looking over some old tidbits. But I want to give you a disclaimer really quick, okay? Please stay objective. That's first. Second of all, let's not start pointing fingers. Let's not start doing anything hasty because we don't really all have the facts. Because it's a little bit harder to find what's actually going on. And so I'm going to try to give you guys some information so you can look at this on your own time and really dig into it if you feel the need, if this is something you're interested in. But I really want to caution you about trying to formulate some kind of competition like A versus B or whatever. In the spiritual realm or in the reality or in politics, just let's not do that. Let's just stay objective. So the first thing I would suggest strongly that you do is you go to YouTube and you look up this movie. Now, for right now, the movie is still here. Hopefully it's going to stay here. This is a movie in Italian, but it has English subtitles. You might need to pause it once in a while in order to read the subtitles because it kind of goes quickly. And it's kind of a complex, political, intriguing, I wouldn't say thriller, but definitely a big mystery. What is this movie about? This is the true story about a banker who was tied to the Vatican, okay? And as you will see if you go into the movie, you'll be able to figure out exactly who's the culprit and how that worked. But it's a kind of a very complex web, meaning there are different organizations that are lending money, that are borrowing money, that are setting up a sort of scheme, pyramid scheme. I'm not going to say that's exactly how it worked because I don't know. But if you watch the movie, you'll understand that there's forces at work that are behind the scenes, okay? Specifically at the Vatican. And it doesn't always necessarily mean that everyone at the Vatican knows what's going on. To the contrary, as I'm about to show you some really interesting and shocking material, that perhaps there are some bad actors pretending to put on a mask when in reality they have a different agenda. So first, go watch this movie or watch it later or whatever you want to do. Now, this was an interesting article going back to the whole Satan has entered the church and the analogy of smoke. Let's read this real quick. At the cathedral in Central Italy is perhaps the most frightening religious painting ever constructed. The Italian Renaissance painter Luca Signorelli painted it. The painting is called Deeds of the Antichrist. What makes it so unsettling is that it depicts an eerie portrait of how the devil operates. The painting shows this human Antichrist figure listening as the devil whispers in his ear. So here's the painting. Okay, Luca, Sermon, and the Deeds of the Antichrist. If we zoom in, you can see there's a devil right here standing on that square next to the guy, and he's got his arm in that sling and he's whispering in this guy's ear. So this is what it says. Devil whispers in his ear. What is interesting about this image is the devil puts his hand in the vesture of the Antichrist in such a way that it looks for all the world like the Antichrist's own arm, when in fact it is the devil's arm superimposed onto him. This image is a clever way of suggesting how the dark powers influence us. They do it secretly, subtly, and manipulating through cryptic insinuation. It is done in such a way that it looks like human activity, and indeed it is, but it's guided heavily by the dark powers that have invaded into the human space. The painting illuminates how the demonic realm intervenes and controls this world in a subtle way, all the while slipping their hand in so they control the human hand. The other vivid point the painting makes is the devil's main motive is to cause internal damage to the church. After all, if the devil takes down Christ's church, he's got nothing to stop him. We can know this is true. Okay, you might be thinking, who's this Zachary King guy? Zachary King was a You can read it here. The miracle story of divine mercy. So Zachary King was just a boy, 10 years old. He joined a coven, and then he did a lot of bad things. And then in 2008, while working at a kiosk, he had some type of spiritual encounter, which persuaded him to pursue peace. And he got out of the coven and became a Christian, and looks like a Catholic. He started going to St. Francis Xavier Catholic Church. Okay, so it says after 26 years involvement with the occult, Zachary has become a warrior for Christ and wants to share his knowledge for the protection of God's people. So this is talking about Zachary King had probably the most radical conversion story, as he went from a 20-year-old. Okay, so you can read it here. Okay, back in the 70s, there was a Pope Paul VI. You can go and research all this good stuff here, and there's a lot of information, so you could easily get confused. But I want you to take a look at something first and foremost, okay? In 1975, October 2nd, there was this lady who said, "I have warned you that there are 3 popes now in the city of Rome. Villot," who's Villot? He's a cardinal. I'm going to show you in a minute. Casarioli, another cardinal, and Benelli. Okay, they have, I repeat, brought forth an imposter, while they have laid low Pope Paul VI, your father, your true father. Okay, so they're saying that the real Pope, this picture here on the left, top left, that's the real Pope Paul VI, okay? The guy who actually has good intentions. But 2 cardinals, now cardinals very high up in the church, like when we're talking about bureaucracy, right? Because we're talking about bureaucracy now. We're not talking about faith or spirituality or belief. That's something else. That's a concept we're not even dealing with. We're talking about strictly bureaucracy and orders and, who does what and money and all this kind of stuff. So 2 cardinals allegedly are doing some sneaky things. What am I meaning? When I say that, I mean that when the Pope writes a letter or a memo, one of these cardinals, because he's so closely connected, will take this letter or memo or intercept it and change some of its wording. Now, you might find that hard to believe, but let's continue on, okay? So this happened in October of 75, this warning from Our Lady of the Roses. Okay. Now, if we go down here on this website, which you're welcome to check this out. There's all kinds of interesting things about the real Pope and then the fake Pope, meaning that there was an imposter put in place. Okay, and then the website goes on and tells you, look at the nose and ears and moles and all this kind of stuff. Longer nose, shorter nose, mole, no mole, so... And then you can see the ears a little different, whatever. Okay, you can go and look at this on your own time. Okay, now they also have voice records. Now, the top voice record is from Easter. Voice was in 75 Easter. So Easter is around April, okay? And then that's the voice of Pope Paul VI, the real voice, the real Pope. Okay, now below is Christmas of 75. So you see about, 8 months later, another... the Pope, the imposter, was put in place. Okay, and they have different voice signatures, allegedly. Like, I don't know. I haven't listened to this, but this is some data you should look at. Okay, now there was a nun named Sister Lucy. She's pictured here, okay, above the Getty Images logo. And then the Pope is on the left, not the guy with the beard, the guy with in the white, okay, on the left. Okay. Now, this is from 67, so she's obviously close to this Pope or whatever. Agostino Casarioli, okay, and he was, I believe he's a cardinal, right, who became Cardinal Secretary of State, okay, and then this is what's important. He was the most important figure behind the Vatican's efforts to deal with the persecution of the Church in the nations of the Soviet bloc after the Second Vatican Council. So, he was in charge of all of the churches after a certain point. And that could be good and bad. Okay, so because we're talking about politics. Now, Giovanni Benelli, okay, was an Italian cardinal, and he served as archbishop. So this is the other guy that they're talking about. So they're talking about Benelli and they're talking about Casarioli as being the two guys that are using power. Benelli. Okay, and then Villot was actually another cardinal. So 3 guys. Okay, so 3 guys are using power that they're not supposed to be using. That's the whole idea. All right, great. So let's review really quick. First, Pope Paul VI delivered a sermon that startled the world in 1972, describing the chaos then consuming the post-conciliar church. What does that mean, post-conciliar? It means after Vatican II. Vatican II is a fancy way of saying that there was a conference that amended certain rules. And after that happened, there was a lot of chaos because a lot of people didn't agree with some of these rules and said that they weren't right. They weren't holy. Anyway, so let's continue. His quote said, "From some fissure, the smoke of Satan has entered the temple of God." So Pope Paul VI, the one here with the green check mark, that's the real one. It was called the Deception of the Century. And Sister Lucy tried to warn him that there was a vision that happened years before, and in that vision there was a message about the future of the church, and there were allegedly 4 secrets, and the 3rd secret read that Satan would enter the highest realms of the church, infiltrate. And there are 3 cardinals at that time in the 70s that were doing some funny business. They were misusing their power. Okay, thank you for listening. Subscribe, and I hope you stay tuned for part 2. Take care and be safe.